I'm explaining a film from 2015 titled Even Lambs Have Teeth. Spoilers ahead. Enjoy the content. The movie opens with Katie urinating, and Sloane calls her to go use drugs with other young people, your usual youths looking to get wasted. Following that, they returned home to get more information. Sloane is an easily goofy girl. Blends in and becomes lustful at the sight of someone she likes. Regarding Katie, she is a gentle, naive girl who frequently exhibits psychopathic tendencies. To put it briefly, people have a strong desire to shop in New York City. However, since they still don't have enough money, they choose to start saving by helping their uncle, who also happens to be an FBI intelligence agent, by working on an organic farm. The two girls were taken up by their uncle Jason the following day and placed in his apartment as a temporary home. Jason drove the two girls to the bus stop the following day so they could continue their bus journey to the organic farm. Jason provided them a secret code to contact him in the event of an undesired occurrence happening before they departed. Similar to how every SMS must contain the phrase, Apple, and the code needs to be updated daily. This was carried out in order to protect his two nieces from horrible acts, much less being abducted and raped. They had a severe urge to urinate shortly after Jason departed. Then they ran into a cafe to locate a bathroom. It was at that time that two lads, Jed and Lucas, arrived. They went up to Katie, who was alone herself at the moment while Sloane went to the bathroom. The two lads kept ogling her with lusty gazes. They approached these two attractive females even more aggressively, especially when Sloane emerged from the restroom. It turned out that Sloane and Katie drew the attention of these two males. Without a doubt, they made sly requests for these two females to be asked out on dates right away. The two females gave a brief explanation of their trip to the city, stating that they planned to work on an organic farm. The two youngsters jumped at the chance to give Katie and Sloane a ride. They reasoned that because the two lads were heading in the same direction, it would be best for them to accompany them. Katie first objected since she was reminded of her uncle's remarks. However, because Sloane was constantly lusty and couldn't bear to see boys, they eventually accepted Jed and Lucas' invitation and went with them, not comprehending what was in store for them. Once they were all in the car, the narrative proceeded. As it turned out, Katie and Sloane had not gone to the organic farm with these two guys. Instead, he took these two females to his home. At last, they reached the residence of Jade and Lucas. Their mother smiled broadly to meet them. Jade and Lucas's mother gave Katie and Sloane a cup of tea before they set off to see the organic farm. Naturally overjoyed by the mother's hospitality, Katie and Sloane sipped the tea right away, not raising any red flags. Sloane's wealth of knowledge in the drug business allowed her to recognize that narcotics had been added to the tea. Additionally, Sloane urged Katie to flee the area right away, claiming that the two females were under the influence of drugs. But Jed and Lucas were able to capture them and bring them back inside the home, so the two girls' efforts were in vain. The following morning, Katie and Sloane find themselves in an old container and somewhat nude in the middle of the woods. They were terrified and yelled aloud in the hopes that someone would hear them and come to their aid. They were also bound and only had on their underpants. Soon after, Jed arrived and informed them that, despite their best efforts, no one would know about their need for assistance. Jed then instructed them to return to the container and make use of all of its amenities. The head of the group of sex offenders arrived a moment later. When he seized Katie's phone, he was Boris, and it seems that's when he knew Jason was keeping an eye on his niece's health. Additionally, Boris thought that they were communicating with each other through a code. Thus, he requested the secret code from them. However, it seems that Boris was unaware that the daily changes to the secret code were required. Boris also attempted to communicate with Jason by utilizing the original code, which was Apple. Then these thugs had Katie and Sloane take a shower in front of them, when all of a sudden a police officer appeared. But hold on, it seems like this officer is one of them. This policeman called Andrew first appeared to help these two girls, but it later became clear that this was done just to instill further fear in Katie and Sloane, making it simpler for them to get what they want after all. Andrew had raped Katie, who was sobbing with pain and humiliation and had no idea that it would make her less proud. It came out that the villagers' passion was the reason they abducted these two females. These jerks arrived and proceeded to rape both Sloane and Katie in succession. To begin with, here comes a man smoking a cigarette who is preparing to rape Sloane. It seems that this man was so enthusiastic about Sloane's attractive figure that he tormented her before engaging in sexual relations with her.
Too far.
Later that day, a different man with a pig mask appeared. Sloane was also selected by this man to be his sex slave. The despicable man had placed the pig mask on Sloane's head, torturing her until she was in excruciating pain and unable to speak. Meanwhile, Katie and Sloane haven't arrived to the organic farm, which worries Jason in his apartment. In addition, Katie sent him a note stating that they were both okay, even though Boris had already composed that message earlier. However, Jason thought it odd that Katie consistently ended her SMS messages with the same code Apple, notwithstanding the fact that the agreement stated that the secret code would change every day. Jason wasted no more time in pursuing Katie and Sloane to the location where they vanished. Jason also called the closest police station to report this event. Regretfully, Andrew was the police officer assigned to handle the report. Jason called the police after having a strong suspicion that his niece had been taken hostage. However, Andrew gave a typical response, acting as though nothing had happened, telling Jason to return home and relax. In addition, Andrew pledged that he and his group would search for them right away. Even if Andrew, this scumbag, is also the guilty party, so we know it's all a charade. Sensing a problem, Jason's perceptive mind eventually went without a warrant and looked for his own niece. He also went to the cafe from which they had their most recent communication. Jason received a crucial piece of information indicating that Sloane had spoken with a guy. Then the man driving the blue pickup truck eventually took the two females. Finally, Boris heard about this quite fast. He was furious when he got back to the jungle since he hadn't been informed about the secret code, which seemed to be different. They would kill the two females to cover their tracks, not thinking that Katie had overheard their conversation from behind the container. The smoking guy arrived to take care of Katie and Sloane, who had accepted their fate, as they were relishing their final minutes. Katie's dark and awful psychotic soul will be revealed since Jed and Boris are getting ready to kill the two girls. Knowing that the man who was smoking was readily aroused, Katie made plans to seduce him and have sex in order to get away. This man was so obsessed with sex games that he didn't realize Katie was about to do something really cruel to him. As it turned out, Katie killed the lusty man in a very sadistic way. Shortly after Andrew arrived at the scene to have sex with this female, he was startled to learn of the smoking man's passing. Andrew became even more enraged when the two females even took his car and made off with it. Katie and Sloane meet additional girls who beg for rides on their way out and are certain to become the next victims of the group of sex criminals. Once they realized this, they turned back to the hamlet and resolved to get revenge on the locals for all that had been done to them. However, before that, they visited the hardware shop to get all the necessary gear for their retaliation, including axes, chains, baseball bats, nails, and more. Equipped with the address provided by the hardware shop owner, they were also able to locate Boris. They kept an eye on things as well because it appeared like Boris had just gotten back from the city. Unexpectedly, a nail ball strikes Boris in the face, forcing him to stumble and collapse. Then, they requested information on the whereabouts of the man wearing the pig mask and the previous instance of his cruel rape of Katie. Following their discovery of information on the man wearing the pig mask, the two females subjected Boris to severe torture by sticking a spiked rod into his anus.
You might feel a little bit of pressure.
Once they were done tormenting him, the two females abandoned Boris, leaving him seriously injured and allowed him to pass away gradually. Jason quickly arrived to Boris's residence after the two females left. How horrified Jason was to learn that Boris had passed so terribly. Regretfully, Jason never got to meet his two nieces as they set off to get revenge on the man wearing the pig mask right away. The shocking truth is that the man wearing the pig mask is a well-known priest at the town church. This insane priest was not scared when Sloane barged into his church. He fell when Katie struck him suddenly from behind with a baseball bat. Following that, the two females grabbed the man to a place to be tortured even more cruelly. The priest continued to talk incoherently after his corpse was bound to the automobile and carried around the hamlet, breaking his form. He then cursed the two girls with prayers he had composed. That was not the end of it. Then Sloane and Katie tormented him once more by setting him ablaze. In the meanwhile, Jason visits Andrew at the police station once more to inquire about Katie and Sloane. The ringtone sounded quite similar when Jason phoned Katie out of the blue. Andrew was really carrying Katie's phone, as it turned out. This statement implies that no crime is flawless. Since Andrew's abduction was ludicrously linked to Katie and Sloane's disappearance, Jason also realized this right away. After that, Andrew locked Jason in a room and held him captive. Andrew's passion could not be contained any longer. Thus, he brought in the females who had been abducted earlier right away and sexually assaulted them. Unbeknownst to him, Katie and Sloane were already behind him, prepared to use a baseball bat to strike this evil Andrew in the head. Andrew was eventually restrained by them, afterwards engaged in a game of Russian roulette. Here, they loaded a revolver-style weapon with ammunition. To make the wretched sheriff scared, the two females fired alternating shots at him. Andrew was fatally shot in the head by them as they approached the loaded bullet in the gun.
I will never.
They gave the two females who had been taken captive by Andrew the command to release Jason without informing him what had just transpired after murdering Andrew. In the meanwhile, Katie and Sloane will search for Mother and Jed Lucas, the last person who abducted them. At last, the mother was made to witness her two boys being tortured as the three of them were sedated and placed in the basement. The two females brutally beat Jed to death while he was in a confined state.
Please. Please.
In the meantime, these two females coerce Lucas, who appears kind and innocent, into killing his own mother. Lucas, however, did not dare to kill his mother with his own hands since he loved her so dearly. These two females said that the penalties still needed to be paid, showing that they didn't care. Lucas was shot in the head and died. His mother is the last, and she will be brutally murdered. Where the mother's body would be torn apart by a lawnmower that Sloane and Katie had planned. You can probably imagine what occurred when Katie ruthlessly moved the live machine closer to the mother's face. After being earlier torn in the face by the lawnmower, the mother also died terribly. The film ends with the two girls happily heading home, excited to go shopping in New York City. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Hope to see you next time.